This is your host, Danny, and this is Do You Know from English Plus Podcast. I'm pretty sure you've heard the name Nelson Mandela before, but how much do you know about this great man? Well, if you would like to learn more, so stick around. This Do You Know episode from English Plus Podcast is going to be about Nelson Mandela. Now, before we start, let me remind you that you can find more on our website. There's a link that will take you to a custom post we created for this episode in the description. Check our other posts as well because there is a lot to learn. Not only English, knowledge, literature, a lot of other topics. You can pick the one you like and follow us there as well. You can leave comments, you can start a discussion, whatever you like. Everything is there on EnglishPlusPodcast.com. And also, if you'd like to get our premium episodes, you can subscribe through Apple Podcasts to get all our premium episodes or become a patron of our show on Patreon, and then you will have all our premium episodes, and very soon you will have every single issue we create of English Plus magazine. But that is coming soon. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. I'm going to leave it as a surprise. And now, without further ado, let's start talking about this great man, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, a boy from an African village, grew up to become the first black president of South Africa. Before he became president, Mandela led a long and difficult struggle against segregation in South Africa. Under segregation, black and white people were kept apart. Segregation denied blacks many basic rights. Mandela spent many years in prison for trying to end segregation in South Africa. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was born in 1918 in a small village in the Transkei region of South Africa. His father was a chief of the Tembu tribe. Mandela's parents named him Rolihlahla, an African word that means troublemaker. Little did they know how fitting his name would be. At the age of 7, Mandela became the first person in his family to go to school. At school, Mandela was given the name Nelson. He went on to attend college and earn a law degree in the city of Johannesburg. When Mandela was a young man, South Africa was divided by segregation. Segregation in South Africa was called apartheid, a word that means apartness. Under apartheid, black people couldn't vote or hold certain jobs. Whites controlled the government. Blacks and whites lived in separate areas and went to different schools. Mandela opposed this cruel and unfair system. In 1944, Mandela joined a group called the African National Congress, the ANC. The ANC opposed the rule of South Africa by whites alone. The ANC believed that South Africa belonged to everyone, whatever the color of their skin. Mandela was a natural leader and a gifted speaker. He became a leader in the ANC and he encouraged people to break the apartheid laws. The government saw Mandela as a troublemaker. It tried to stop him. The government made the ANC illegal. Mandela was arrested several times. When he was released, he continued to fight for an end to apartheid. In 1962, the government sentenced Mandela to 5 years in prison. Then in 1964, he was accused of working to overthrow the government. The government increased Mandela's sentence to life in prison. The government sent Mandela to a prison on Robben Island off the coast of South Africa. The prison conditions were harsh. Mandela was allowed only one visitor every 6 months. Every day he was forced to break rocks in the prison yard for many hours. During this time, Mandela became the world's most famous political prisoner. Leaders around the world demanded Mandela's freedom. They wanted apartheid in South Africa to end. In 1982, the government moved Mandela to a prison on the mainland. This was during a time of growing violence in South Africa. Many people protested in the streets against apartheid. The government began secret talks with Mandela. They believed that if anyone could stop the trouble, Mandela could. He was a popular leader and had won the support of many South Africans. In 1990, Mandela was released after spending 27 years in prison. The government lifted the ban on the ANC. Mandela became its leader in 1992. Mandela soon began talks with the government aimed at ending apartheid. Many white people worried about giving blacks equal rights. Mandela worked with South Africa's President de Klerk to promote peaceful relations between blacks and whites. For their efforts, Mandela and de Klerk won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. In 1994, South Africa held elections. For the first time in South Africa's history, men and women of all races could vote. Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. He brought an end to the hated apartheid system. After 5 years as president, Mandela retired from political office. He returned to live in the Transkei region where he grew up. So that is the story of Nelson Mandela. The greatness of this man is not only that he suffered 27 years in prison and then he was released. It's not your regular underdog story that you like to see in movies and stuff like that. The greatest thing about this man that after 27 years of oppression and imprisonment, when he was president, he did not take revenge on anybody. He started his reign with peace and forgiveness. Even after everything that has happened to him, he was able to forgive the people who did this to him, not because he was only good-hearted, but because he saw the future of his country, and the future of his country was together, was everybody together, blacks and whites. If he decided to take revenge, maybe until this very day we will still be hearing about troubles and civil war in South Africa, who knows? Or maybe big massacres would have occurred. But Mandela was the man who rose to the occasion at the opportune time to bring South Africa to this modern nation that it is today, where blacks and whites live together side by side as humans. And by doing that, he gave an example for all the world to follow. So, this was Nelson Mandela. I hope you learned something new in today's Do You Know episode. Don't forget that you can find more on EnglishPlusPodcast.com. And also, if you want to get all our premium episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, or you can become a patron of English Plus Podcast on Patreon. All the links you need are in the description of the episode. With that being said, this is your host, Danny. Thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.